Thank you for joining Leadership Rediscovered, a podcast devoted to all things leadership. I'm your host, Laura Siebold, and I'm also the president and founder of Shine Consulting. Each episode, we interview different leaders from different walks of life and different industries to learn about their unique definition of leadership. And today, I am excited to interview Pat Snively, who is the new president of the Marion County Chamber of Commerce here in West Virginia. So Pat, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you. And we were, conversing a little bit before we hit the record button, but you've had a really cool career, really interesting opportunities from a leadership perspective. And instead of me reading your bio, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself and just kind of tell us your story. Tell us a little bit about your leadership journey.
Yeah, sure. So I was a student athlete at Fairmont State, starting in the early 90s.
Yeah.
And I walked onto the swim team. I was offered a position on the team. Not much experience, not much background in the sport, just a couple years of high school and club swimming. And I wasn't real great, but I was given an opportunity. And had a great coach, Ed Denny. He was a great swimmer at WVU, and had great teammates, All-American teammates, and I chased him up and down the pool every day and worked really hard, tried to learn a lot. And through the course of my collegiate career, got better. I feel like through that experience and, having great coaches, great teammates, something in me said, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
I want to be a coach.
Cool.
I saw Coach Denny as somebody who, I wanted to emulate. I wanted to be, like him and inspire other people. So as I was finishing out my degree, I stayed on as a student coach. And once I finished the degree, I went on to get a master's degree and worked with the club team, came back to Fairmont as an assistant coach. And when Coach Denny left, they put me in the hot seat, and that was trial by fire, if you will. I was young; I was the youngest college swimming coach in the country.
Wow!
And so it was tough getting going.
Yeah.
I had his support, but at the same time, I was young. I was just barely older than the kids I was coaching.
Oh my goodness!
And a lot of them had just previously been my teammates.
I was just going to say, you probably swam with them. Yeah.
So it was interesting. It was challenging, but I knew that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Fast forward 20 years later, I had a 20-year career as the head men's and women's swimming coach at Fairmont State. And honestly, it was the best thing I could have done in my journey. And great experience. Learned a lot of hard lessons, but I think a lot of good lessons. And I worked with a lot of great student athletes. And my experience through all that was to help shape them. Yeah. And, we had some good results in the meantime.
Yeah.
But, moreover, it was about helping them to see what their potential was.
Yeah.
And I think throughout that journey, I helped myself in cultivating what, what my own journey was, right? So it was neat, and exciting for me to watch young people excel, and be their biggest cheerleader.
That's awesome.
After those 20 years, though, we headed right into the pandemic.
Oh yeah.
And that was a challenging time. And
sure.
I sat back and thought, is there something different now? Is there a different way to affect more people, more young people? And I don't know, maybe challenge myself to branch out a little bit and do something different in my journey.
Yeah.
And I applied for my first ever athletic director job at Wheeling University, landed that job and started there January of 2021.
Wow.
And
we're still in the thick of the pandemic then.
It was right in the middle of it, and we were just starting to open up and play games again, and we played all the schedule, the fall sports, the winter sports, and the spring sports, all in that spring semester of 2021. So didn't have a day off. We had competitions every single day. It was another challenging time, and a challenging time to be a first-time athletic director. But we had a great staff, supportive president, and great coaches, great student athletes, and that was another experience and a step in my leadership journey.
Yeah.
It didn't last long. Because another opportunity presented itself to move on to Davis and Elkins College as their athletic director. My wife and I started there that summer. She took a position there as well. And so from then until just about a month ago,
recently,
I was at Davis and Elkins College. So I've had a varied career up to this point. It's all been in higher education and athletics.
Yeah.
And now I move on to a different venture.
Something totally different.
It's totally different, but there's some correlation, and it's all about relationship building. And I still think about being a cheerleader for others.
That's awesome. Okay, so can we kind of deep dive a few of the milestones along your journey, if you don't mind? Okay, so I'm so curious to hear about. First of all, when you talked about Coach Denny for you said, I really emulated him and wanted to be like him. What specifically was it about him that had such an impact on you?
I just think the way he cared about me as an individual. He and I have been close ever since. We text almost daily. A lot of times it's just jokingly because we have a lot of fun together. But I never needed it because my dad's always been close, but he's been like a father figure to me as well. I always saw that as important. I saw that as important as a young athlete to have somebody that you can lean on. Whenever I had went through tough patches as a young person trying to grow in the sport, he always knew what to say. He knew exactly how to help me bounce back, and I needed that. I needed that at the time, and I knew that I could be that for other people. And it just, I guess that's what I wanted to be more than anything. But then when I became the head coach, there was a part of me too that said, I got this. I don't want to call him all the time with every question I have.
How do you do this? And how do your job's not to be a clone of him.
Right. So there were a lot of things that I wanted to do differently too. But, sort of the framework of everything I did, I learned from him.
Oh, that's awesome. And then, 20 years is a long time to be in that role. What sustained you and kept you motivated in staying with it? Because I can imagine some people might be like, oh, we got another season starting. There's a cyclical piece, or there's a lot of cyclical parts about that role. So what kind of kept you in it?
Sure. And just like any sport, I would imagine, there are the similar frameworks to every season and how you build the training cycles and things like that. But in order to keep it fresh and new for the kids on the team, you have to be willing to bend and adjust what you do. Yeah. And I think that's what kept it fresh for me too. If I go through a season and I look at it and say, well, this is how we were successful, I want to build upon that. And you know what? I have to humble myself too and say, these are some of the things that weren't successful, and how do I adjust those things or maybe do away with them altogether? And that kept that fresh for me as well as I headed into a new season, because it is cyclical, and you do it for 2 decades.
Right.
It could be
Groundhog Day.
It could be pretty tough. Yeah. So, that's it's a difficult sport for the individuals that participate. It's the longest collegiate season on a campus, and those morning practices are tough, and they're doing doubles. It's a tough sport. It's a grind for them, but at the same time, I had to be there those mornings as well, and work all day. And
can I ask
then
why swimming is always practices are always so early in the morning? I feel like that is a very that is something that swimmers do, is they practice very early in the morning. But is there a reason behind that, or
because it gives you the ability to get 2 in a day?
Oh,
so if you practice early in the morning, you have enough time to rest and recover and do it a second time in the day.
That's a really rigorous training, isn't it?
It is, and there's it's psychologically pretty tough too, because there's not a lot of interaction with your teammates when you swim, because your face is looking at that black line at the bottom of the pool, and
a lot of time just you and your own mind.
right so it's tough. It's a grind, but in order for a coach to have an impact, you have to recognize those things and be empathetic.
Yeah. Well, I think it's cool that having gone through it yourself, and especially the way you talked about, hey, listen, I didn't come in as an all-star, heavily recruited. I had to work really hard and earn my place on the team. And so all the challenges that you likely went through just aided in your being able to turn around and help your students get through their experience, which is cool.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Tell me about the pivot from athletic director to president of the Chamber of Commerce. I got to hear all the nuts and bolts of, what got you excited about that opportunity, and even, what you're hoping to bring to the table with it.
Well, sure. And as you know, Tina Shaw was the former president, and Tina did a remarkable job in her 2+ decades in the role. And, so when you look at a position, you don't have to reinvent the wheel when someone does a great job in the role. But, at the same time, I've known Tina for a long time, and I've seen the joy that she's taken from the job. And I've seen the hard work that she's put into it, and what she's been able to do to be a leader in the community and to be able to affect change in the community. And when I see all those things and I couple those all together, I say, I can do those things, and at the same time bring a different perspective to the arena and affect change maybe in a different way. My background may not look like president of the Chamber of Commerce, but at the same time, I think there are a lot of parallels too. It's all about relationship building. It's all about leadership. It's all about community. And, I've done all those things, and I've done those for many years in the Marion County. So, it's a pretty good fit, and it's dovetailing pretty nicely so far.
Yeah, it's exciting to see. I mean, Tina, as you said, has done a great job, but it's always cool when you see someone new coming in to say, okay, how are they going to tackle this role, and what things are they going to do that are the same, and what things are they going to do that's different? And so it's just kind of neat to see. For people who aren't real familiar with what that kind of a role is, I mean, do you mind just describing a little bit about, especially how you see your role in the community and the things that you're most hoping to impact?
Sure. So the Chamber of Commerce is, again, I've used the word, but the biggest cheerleader for the business community in the county. And what we do is we are basically a conglomerate of all the business entities within our county and beyond. And we support them. We bring resources to them. We bring programming, training, etc. Anything we can do to help support their businesses, we want to do that, and we feel like we can be their biggest voice, their biggest advocate, and that's how we can affect change and affect their business. And at the same time, we want to be a driver for quality of life in our region. So that's our mission. And it's maybe difficult to fulfill that at times, but I view it as we have a lot of entities that are trying to do the same things in a community, and you see that everywhere, I think.
And competing for the same resources
competing,
too.
and that's a tough thing. You use the word competing, but I've said this I think multiple times over this past month. We all have to be pulling the rope together in the same direction instead of pulling in different directions. And if we can do that, the sky's the limit. There's so much opportunity in this area of the state, and I think that if we can work together, we can affect so much change, and there is so much potential here.
Yeah. And you've lived here a really long time, so know, and you've lived in other places too. So, I mean, what the possibilities and the potential are, which is really cool to see.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. All right, let's talk about leadership.
Okay.
So I would love to hear, especially given all the leadership experiences that you've had, just what your definition of leadership is and what it means to you.
Yeah, so that's interesting because, we talked prior to going live about, how many different books there are on leadership, how many different definitions there are of leadership. And, I've read a ton of those books. I've watched podcasts. I've watched TED Talks. I've when you're in the biz for a long time, you've seen a lot of it, and I don't know that I have a cookie cutter definition or a textbook definition. I think a lot of people say, you know it when you see it, and I'm not sure that's the case. I feel like you know it when you feel it.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, so I think that you can see somebody up on a stage talking about leadership, and you might know that they're a good leader based on what they've produced, right? Or how they conduct themselves and how strong their voice is, or something like that. But unless you're within their organization or their team, you don't really know.
Yeah.
But I think that if you are within an organization or you are a member of a team or whatever it might be, if that leader cares. If they're putting your needs before their own.
Yeah.
And then if you can feel that, what leadership is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there are many different types of leaders.
Yeah.
We know that from the text.
For sure. Yeah. And from what we've experienced too, firsthand.
And they can all be good.
Yeah.
They can all lead in different ways, and it can all be effective and achieve the same results. But they need to know their personnel too, and they need to be able to adapt to that personnel.
Yeah.
Because, the way you talk to one person may not be the same as the way you talk to another. The way that you kind of pull them along might not be the same as the next person either. So I think it's a feeling. And, starting out as a young coach, I wasn't reading the books. I wasn't TED Talks didn't exist back then.
Right, exactly.
So I wasn't trying, I didn't know what leadership was, but at the same time, I think I had enough perspective to look around and say, what do they need? And how can I be that for them? That's
very cool. And I would have to assume, just how many athletes do you typically have on a roster at any given point?
Typically about 30.
Okay, that's a lot. That's a lot of young people to get to know, and different personalities to manage, and all of that.
Then if you coach a club team, it might be up to 100, and I've done that a few times. And so it's so you can coach plenty, and then if you're an athletic director, you might have 400 student athletes, but I kind of view that as when you're in that role, you're helping lead the coaches who are leading the student athletes.
Yeah. I'm so curious, just because I don't think I've ever had an athletic director on the podcast before. Do the coaches kind of report to you in a sense, organizationally? How does that work?
That's how the org chart would be.
Okay.
So I feel like going into the two opportunities I had as an athletic director, I felt like I would have maybe more interaction with student athletes than I did. And maybe that's the one regret that I had. And so with those roles, I feel like I guess the most important thing for me that I quickly realized was I was working more with the coaches, which I knew I would be, and trying to find them the resources to be successful, and in helping them along with their journey, because I was coaching a lot of young coaches, and helping them understand what their leadership style is, and helping them along. And if I was able to do that, maybe I was helping them.
Yeah, indirectly. It's almost like
so,
I'm still touching the student, but in a different way.
Yeah, sure.
Through somebody else.
Yeah. So if I was able to do that, then I think I was effective. But at the same time, I didn't have the immediate impact with students that I had previously had, and that was the difficult part of that role, I guess.
Yeah, I could imagine that too, because if you really are used to that type of a relationship and you like being that hands-on, and then you're a little bit further removed from it. Right. But it's interesting because when I listened to you describe your role as athletic director, it's almost exactly how you described your role now. And it's just different type of an audience, but you talk about resources and how do I help them be successful? And that's exactly the way you described the role that you're in now with the Chamber of Commerce. So on paper, it may look different to people, like but you're right. There is a lot of connection points between what you have done in your career and what you're doing now. Yeah,
it's all crossover and correlation.
Yeah. So you also mentioned leadership style. I'd like to hear your take on just how you think, if I polled people that have worked with you in the past and asked them, how would you describe Pat's leadership style? I mean, what would you say, or what would you hope they would say?
What I hope? No, I could almost guarantee that people would say that I lead with empathy. That's important to me.
Yeah.
That's very important to me. I put a lot of love and care into what I do. I care about people.
Yeah.
I would hope that shine through.
That would shine through,
and I feel like for me, leading from within is important. There's room for top-down leadership in this world, but I need to be able to show folks that I work with, and I never say folks work for me. I've never said that. The people that I work with, that I'm willing to do anything within the organization. Yeah. So if I'm asking them to do it, I'll be first in line to volunteer to do it too. Yeah. So I want them to know that I'm willing to work hard and, kind of be the front runner. I'll take the blame if things go wrong, and I'll let them shine when things go right.
Did you put that word in there on purpose? I love the term shine. You get bonus points for that.
Okay, I'll take them.
So I have to tell you, I don't know if you've seen the article or not, because I know you do, look at that stuff. But the newest, I put in quotations, but top skill for leaders across the board, they're saying, is empathy. So is that something that has come naturally for you, or is it more, do you think, a learned behavior that caused you to prioritize that for your own leadership style?
Well, I think behaviors some are innate, and I think a lot of them are learned, though. Yeah. I think honestly, anything leadership-wise has come from my parents. My father is my biggest cheerleader. My mother, unfortunately, had passed several years ago, but and I didn't realize this till later in life, that everything I do in any role I'm in is just a direct reflection of things that they taught me growing up.
Wow.
As stubborn as I was, Simon Sinek talks about leaders eat last, right?
Yes.
And there's never a situation where I'm going to grab the buffet plate and run up to the front of the line, whether I'm the leader of that organization or not. I always, I don't even think about it.
Yeah.
It's everybody else eats first,
Yeah.
and I know I get that from my parents.
Yeah.
And, no matter what function I'm at, whether it's my function or, I'm just a participant, I find myself sticking around afterwards, helping to clean up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's direct reflection, picking up the bulletins after mass.
Yeah.
And my dad still does that at 78 years old. It's just, that's just, I guess, somewhat innate because it comes from my parents, but it's learned from them as well. And
you saw that modeled to your whole childhood and upbringing.
Modeled behaviors, and we learn from our parents, and good and bad.
I was just going to say, sometimes what to do, sometimes what not to do. No pressure,
Right.
Parents that are listening.
Right, absolutely. But and I think that's truly the case. And I like the quote, "Do the best you can with what you have where you are."
Yes.
Teddy Roosevelt. And
Yes.
I love that quote, but I swear that could have been my parents saying that. Because I've always watched them work really, really hard, but always find the time for us as kids. 4 kids in the house.
Oh, wow.
And always being at all of our functions, helping us with our homework. And, just being at everything for us, but working so hard at the same time to make ends meet for us. It's just those things, I think, are learned.
Yeah, I think so too. And that's really cool. And thank you for answering that, because I just am, especially with the empathy piece in particular, because I think that is hard sometimes for leaders. And I also think it is hard if you don't have empathy as a leader. It really can be impactful in terms of not being able to understand your team, not understanding where they're coming from, how they are motivated, and what matters to them, and how to communicate best with them. It can really cross into a lot of different areas of leadership and making it a lot harder for people. So I think if you do have it naturally as a strength, it goes in your favor from a leadership perspective to have that.
And I think hand in hand with that is the ability to listen. If you have true empathy, you're going to listen to the needs of individuals that are in your care.
Yeah, and it's that listening to understand versus listening to respond, right?
Yeah, right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Which, we're trying to do both here in this type of a conversation.
Right. Little give and take. But.
A little bit, yeah, exactly. So on the topic of motivation, again, you've worked with so many people, both young people in terms of coaching, but also, and young coaches, but also maybe some more tenured folks. And I think motivation is another hot topic right now.
Sure.
Amongst the leaders of just how do I get people motivated? How do I get people to, want to work, show up to work? I hear about that a lot, from a business context. And I'd love to hear if you're willing to share any perspective you have just on the topic of motivation, and maybe some lessons that you've learned along the way about how to potentially influence it in others.
Sure. I think from the coaching background, I never had a hard time getting folks motivated.
Yeah.
I'm a pretty calm guy. I think maybe you've caught that from my
demeanor,
but and I never had a hard time getting my teams motivated to work hard or to get up and go when it was race time. Sometimes it may take my face getting red and getting a little bit excited, but that's not typical for me.
Yeah.
But the care that you show throughout, and them understanding that you care about them and you're willing to sacrifice for them is enough at times. I had one of my former athletes just last week we work in a different capacity. He has a job in town, and we were actually talking about his glory days as an athlete, and he said to me, we were always ready to go when it was time to race, and he said, because we wanted to win for you.
Ooh.
And I said, ooh, I don't know about that. Like,
I want you to win for yourself, right?
Yeah, I would hope there'd be a level of self-motivation, that kind of took me aback a little bit. But, he further explained, it was because of how much I cared about them, and I don't want to take this back to the whole empathy piece, but at the same time, if you show how much you care,
yes,
people are willing to move mountains for you.
Yeah.
And I think that's important.
Yes.
If all you ever do is point and direct, then it's tough to get motivation from people.
Absolutely. I mean, I just asked that question to a group of leaders earlier this week. I said, raise your hand if you like to be told what to do all day long.
Right.
Nobody raised their hand.
Right.
But if someone comes up to you and genuinely cares about your success and genuinely cares about you as a human, you don't have to be best friends, but, cares enough that hey, this person actually has some sort of vested interest in me and my success, of course you're going to be more inclined to want to do well for that person out of respect, and to honor the investment that they're making in you. You want to reciprocate it and rise to that level, which... there's a trust building model that I absolutely love. I think it's by Charles Feltman, I believe. And it's a 4-quadrant kind of, it's more of a box, not a 4-quadrant, but it's the first one is care. And then it goes on to, sincerity and reliability and competence, I think is the 4th one. But he says, if you don't have the care piece, we can forget the rest,
right?
Because it doesn't really matter.
Right. If
people don't think that you care about them, they're just not going to be probably very interested in working with you or for you.
Right, absolutely.
Or doing whatever it is that you're asking them to do, unless they absolutely have to. And then in that situation, you're just going to get minimum compliance, right? I'm just going to do what I have to do to maybe not get fired or not lose the game or whatever,
right.
So it's just kind of interesting to think about it from that perspective.
Right.
It matters more than I think people realize, especially from a leadership perspective.
Sure. And I think that then there is difficulty because Adam Grant talks about givers and takers within an organization as well. And if you have people that are just takers, how do you ever get anything from them other than their meeting their own needs?
Yeah.
And so it's difficult to find them and figure out their motivation. But if they are within your organization or your team, sometimes you can shape that and mold that. And I'm a sucker for that because I want to help everybody.
Yeah.
But at some point you get to the point where you have to cut ties.
Yeah.
And, and that's the most difficult part when you're in a leadership position is when you have to say, it's time for you to go.
Yeah. So. This is not, especially when you have empathy for people, because, a lot of time, I fully believe that most people are really trying to do the best they can.
Yeah.
And that might not match what the expectation is, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're a bad person or anything like that. So it can be hard. Those are really hard conversations to have.
Absolutely. Yeah. The worst part about the job in my mind. Some people I think enjoy it, but
which is a problem. Those are the people that should not be in a leadership role. Exactly. I have to tell you, I was looking at your background and bio, and under expertise, you had leadership development first, which really made my heart happy because you had other great skills and competencies on your list, but leadership development was the first one. So I'd love to hear I'm assuming you have a passion for it, or, at least obviously have great expertise and experience in it, but I'd just like to hear, why that matters to you and why you do have an interest in that.
Sure. I think that my greatest experience in that was, I hearken back to when I was a swim coach, and as I was developing my own skills in administration before I became an athletic director, I had a lot of hats I was wearing, but at the same time, I had more time for it.
Yeah.
Honestly, once you become an athletic director, you're on 24/7. It's a tough gig.
I would not want to do that job.
But
a lot of criticism and probably not a lot of praise that goes along with that role, at least from the outside.
won't comment on that. But when I was in a role where I was doing student athlete development, and some of that was leadership development, and creating opportunities for our student athletes that for the broader student athlete population that I had created for my swim team, because it was seen that your kids are involved.
Yes,
they are involved in the community. They are involved on campus. And they're great leaders. And I could sit here and list till the end of the program the kids that have gone on to do great things that have been in my care, and I'm so proud of them.
Yeah.
But for me, that was the most important thing. We had successful teams. We had student athletes that compete at a very, very high level.
Oh, yeah.
But what they're doing now is what I'm most proud of. And developing and helping them develop as leaders was the most important piece for me. So to take that and expand that and bring that to a broader audience was most important for me. So just putting together programming for student athletes was critically important for me. Now, for this chamber position, I'm excited about putting together programming for business community and individuals. And leadership skills are right up our alley in the business community. So
and
we'll be
and
looking
woefully underdeveloped. From my biased opinion.
I agree, and I think that's something that we can be better at, and something that I want to build upon, particularly in Marion County, but in this region.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, the ripple effect that comes from that, right? When you help someone develop in their own leadership, to me, I have a very simple definition of leadership, and it's someone who's in has the ability to enable the success of others. And so it's someone who has the ability to positively influence or impact another individual. And I think sometimes just helping people to recognize when you are in a leadership role, you are in that position of influence, and you are there to serve others and to help other people be successful. And that can show up in a lot of different ways in terms of community leadership, business leadership, student athlete leadership. And I think sometimes people don't even realize that they're a leader. It's like, if you use that definition, I'm like, oh, okay. Because as you know, it's not just a certain title.
It's about helping others find their inner leader, build leaders from other people.
Find their inner leader. Ooh, that's good. I think we have a quote for this episode already. So I have a question that I often ask people who are new to their role, and it's a little bit of a strange question because you just got the job, but I always like to ask about legacy. So fast forward to whenever you decide, you could outlast Tina Shaw, or maybe next year you decide to move on to something else. But as you think about this role that you started in with the chamber, if you could fast forward and be in a position of looking back, what do you hope that you would have accomplished from a leadership perspective, or what kind of legacy would you like to leave as it relates to that role?
Wow, that's
a big question, isn't it?
That's kind of loaded, isn't it?
I know.
Well, certainly, my job is to help impact economic change in Marion County. That's no easy task.
No.
And given the economic climate right now, it's certainly not easy. But I think we have a wave of support.
Yes.
And a lot of people that are excited. I personally have a lot of support right now.
Good.
And that's something that I've cultivated over the last couple of decades. So that's exciting.
There's relationships coming up again.
That's right. That's right. And another big reason why coming back to Marion County was important to me, because I saw that as, an opportunity to be successful. So if we are talking about legacy, I hesitate because, I think humility is important too. But
I see that in you.
But at the same time, if I do want to be able to affect enough change for people to say, boy, he really put his stamp on that. So if revitalization of downtown Fairmont, if people can, get off the Facebook message boards and say there's nothing to do, there's nowhere to shop, I'll be happy.
Yeah, that's measurable, right?
That is, exactly. Look at the analytics there. But, bringing in new businesses, having it be a destination, some of that you can't measure. But I think people can see that. I think people can feel that. Fairmont is, kind of our nucleus. And I think if we can redevelop there, it can, start to spread to the outer reaches of Marion County.
For sure.
And, let's face it, we are right in the middle. Morgantown has boomed. Bridgeport has boomed.
Yeah.
We're right in the middle of it.
Yeah.
We're ripe. We're ready to grow, and we need to have enough eyes on it that are optimistic.
Yes.
And see the potential that we have.
Yeah, there's so much opportunity.
There's so many hardworking folks right there in Marion County, and we have enough people saying, "Remember the good old days." Well, yeah, remember. Well, we have a lot of good days.
You're still here.
Right, exactly.
You could bring them back.
We have a lot of good days ahead of us.
Yes.
And again, it comes down to seeing the potential and pulling that rope together. And if we can do that, and if I can be the one out front saying, let's pull, and I can get enough people involved, then, I will be proud of that. Whether that's legacy or not, I can retire with that pride.
Absolutely.
And I think that's where I can, kind of hang my hat and say, yeah, I had something to do with that.
Well done.
And, but I am humble enough to say that I'm not going to be able to do that alone.
Yes.
And it's going to be everybody involved. And if I can lead some change and then, kind of let other people shine in the process, then
double bonus points.
I'm gonna be super pleased with that.
That's awesome. Very good. Yeah. Thank you. I have to add, this is a video podcast, as you know, but not everyone listens video. But it looks like you're wearing a Charlie Brown pin on your lapel. Is this true?
I am.
Is there a story connected?
There's no real story. I just love Charlie Brown.
Okay.
And I just got this pin the other day. I was
so
scrolling.
Cool.
I was scrolling on Facebook, and it spoke to me. Charlie Brown's head, and he's wearing a little bit of a frown, which I thought, do I wear that to a leadership podcast? I'm not sure.
It's so cool, though. Tell me why you like Charlie Brown.
You know what? He's just kind of the underdog.
Yes.
And he's kind of the anti-hero, right?
Yeah.
But I think there's some leadership lessons to draw from Charlie, right? So he's in a way, I feel like I'm Charlie Brown at times too. I feel like, there are times where, I get frustrated with folks around me, because I know that they have big hearts, and I know that they have potential, but sometimes they let me down.
Yeah.
But at the same time, anything you ever watch, any episode you watch of Charlie Brown, they all come around at the end, and it's in Charlie's right there in the thick of it. Yeah. He's always the one that's kind of leading the charge, and in the end, they all love Charlie.
Yeah,
right?
and a humble character, and very relatable, right?
Yeah. I just love. I mean, I've always loved Charlie Brown stories, but I just look at old Chuck, and I just feel like I can put myself in his shoes sometimes. Especially,
I definitely put myself in his shoes with when he would go to kick the football in the air and it would disappear and he'd land on his back. I relate to those moments.
Right. But you go back for more, right?
Yes, exactly.
That's exactly what Charlie does. He never gives up.
No, it's true. Yeah, he's a good character. I feel like those who know me would say that I'm more like Pigpen, but
I think my wife would say that about me.
There's always a cloud around me, and a lot going on there. That's awesome. I like that pin. I've never seen anyone wear a pin like that. So I'd say keep wearing it because it's cool. It's a good conversation starter too.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right. So last question I wanted to focus on here was just, thinking about you've already had a very successful career in many aspects. And I always think about new leaders starting out, and just if you think about, when you were starting out, if there's advice that you wish someone would have given you, or just, as you reflect back, what would you love to tell a new leader in terms of what to prioritize, what to focus on, and how to be successful as a leader?
I would say pick your head up and look around. Look for mentors. I talked about Coach Denny and how he was there for me, but maybe I didn't lean on him as much as I should have. He was there and he was readily available, and he would have dropped anything he was doing to be there for me. But I think I was, I think I wanted to go it alone a little bit then. And there are times now that I have to remind myself too, that I need help. I think sometimes, that's a flaw of some people, and and I have to remind myself still that you need help with certain things, and you have people around you, people within your organization, and over the last couple of jobs that I've had, hierarchically above me and below me that can help. Don't just put your head down and do the work. And a colleague at a previous job a couple of years ago said, you and I are different, and she's a great leader, but we're polar opposites in a certain regard. She said to me, the difference between the two of us is if someone asks us to bake a cake, hear me out.
I can't wait. This is going to be good.
I'm going to tell you every ingredient for the cake. I'm going to tell you step by step how I'm making the cake, what it's going to taste like, and every step along the way until you taste that cake. You're going to show up with the finished product, and it's going to be perfect. Yeah. But nobody's going to know anything about the cake until it arrives. Now, good or bad, right?
Yeah.
So that can be good because some people don't need to know all those steps along the way.
Absolutely. Yes.
Right.
You're right.
So, and it really depends on, in my situation, depends on who I have in a leadership position above me. That leader may need to know what are the steps involved, and are you going to make the deadline?
Yes.
I'm not going to miss the deadline.
Right.
But, at the same time, I genuinely trust people to do their jobs.
Yes. Or make the cake.
And I'll check in with them and say, do you need help?
Yeah.
But sometimes people need to see the steps along the way.
Yeah.
And that's a tough lesson for me. Sometimes I will just put my head down and do the work to a fault sometimes and not ask for help and just grind it out. And, even when I'm struggling, where I could have asked for help or shown my work along the way, and then someone could have said, hey, I can step in and help you with that. So I think that was a good lesson. Maybe if I would have known that 20 years ago, that would have been maybe more impactful to me. But that was, just a couple of years ago that I was told that, and I thought, my goodness, I do that. Like that's smart. Let me rewind a little bit and let me try to do that a little bit better.
Yeah. That's such a good point, because you can think about it two ways in terms of who you report to and who reports to you. Because to your point, there's some people that I don't want to hear all the detail, or, I don't need to hear all the detail. And other people, if they don't get that level of detail, they may assume you're not doing anything. I don't think he's baking a cake at all. I think he's playing around a golf. It's no, I just don't feel the need to tell you now I'm on step 2 of the ingredient, but you're right. Some people really need that. And I also like the point you made around mentorship, because especially I think as we get further along in our career, I think sometimes we think, oh yes, mentors are important earlier in my career or when I've never done something before. But at this point, I should know what I'm doing. I shouldn't need help. And I disagree with that. I think, every day's a new day and every job's a new job. And there's always opportunities to learn from people who have maybe walked that path ahead of you. And sometimes it's what not to do, maybe, but sometimes what to do. And I do think you're never too far along in your career, or you're never too senior in your career to not look for that mentorship around you.
Well, and I think I see that now, and in this position, I know I have Tina.
Yes.
Right, and she's been a mentor to me in this first month of my job. Yeah. But I know she's a phone call away. But I'm also bringing an ambassador program into the chamber, and what that's going to do is help mentor new members.
Oh, very cool.
And so, but at the same time, I'm also going to help myself, because these are folks that are a little bit more seasoned members and have been around for a while, and they can be kind of eyes and ears for me too. So, I see that
you get
as
2 for the price of 1 on that one.
So, and we have a lot of folks that have been around, our chamber, in our membership for a long time, but also have been in our county and know the business climate, and will have the ability to report back and say, hey, X business is struggling a little bit. Can you go out and see them and try to help them? When we have 400 members, I can't be at
every single one.
Yeah, I can't be there for everybody all the time, no matter how much I want to be. But if I can get these ambassadors out to help me kind of spread the word and, tell what the good things that we're doing, and report back when we have members that maybe need a little bit of assistance, then that's going to help. But at the same time, they can mentor me along because they've been around a little bit longer.
Yeah, that's very cool. Fantastic. Yeah. Anything we haven't covered today that you were hoping we'd get to? I know you weren't fully, focused on what exactly we were going to get out of the conversation, but anything that you'd like to close out with that I haven't asked you about?
I don't know. I don't know.
Come back on that one, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I just wanted to have a conversation, open a dialogue. So
I appreciate that. Now, I don't know if you're aware, but at the end of my podcast, I do a lightning round. Are you
I've seen a little bit of that. Yep.
Okay. I never know if people watch all the way through or how that goes. So the lightning round is 60 seconds to answer as many open-ended questions about you as you possibly can. Game? Okay. Let me get my timer started here. All right. What season best fits your personality?
Fall.
What's your most used emoji in text?
A thumbs up.
I love it. What book, song, movie, or podcast has had the greatest impact on your life?
Ooh, a book, The Old Man and the Sea.
Oh, that's a good one. What's something about you that surprises people when they first hear it?
I'm a pretty avid bird watcher.
A bird watcher. Okay, cool. Fill in the blank. I spend too much money on
craft beer.
Oh, I thought you were going to say bird watching paraphernalia. What celebrity would you want to play you in a movie?
Ooh. I don't know. Maybe Michael Rappaport.
Oh, good one. Okay. What is your favorite room in your house?
Living room.
Okay. And if you catch me by the fridge at night, I'm probably snacking on what?
I don't snack on much from the fridge, but Cheez-Its.
Cheez-Its from the pantry. Yep. I love it. Okay, that was good. You got through quite a bit. This was awesome. Thank you so much. It was really good to meet you, and I'm excited for you in this role. I think I agree with you. There's so much opportunity, and I think you're coming in at a great time. Tina's walking out at a high level, and things, tons of momentum behind you. So it's exciting. Maybe we can have you back in a year, and you can talk about your first year. Would you be open to that?
Yeah, definitely. Please.
Cool. All right. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, everyone, that's all the time we have for today. Until next time, shine bright, everyone.